The beacon wasn't supposed to go dark. It wasn't even supposed to be touched. For 700 years, it had pulsed like a heartbeat at the edge of Terran space, quiet, steady, untouchable. Not a warning, not a weapon, a signal, a message written in radiation and rhythm. We are still here. So when the Ilari disabled it, they didn't just cross a line. They erased the line entirely. In the Ilari Grand Council Hall, High Strategist Ural clicked his claws together and laughed. One signal pulse every 6 seconds, and you call that power? Terrans worship relics. They do more than worship them, replied the intelligence officer quietly. They bury things beneath them. Ural waved it off. Humans don't bury, they bluff. That was when the stars shifted. A VD spike, the first pulse hit 2 sectors away. A gravity flare. Brief, measured, precise. Then another. Not weapons. Arrivals. And not just ships. Shapes. Spear-like silhouettes. Of Terran design, but older, meaner, silent. From behind a fractured moon, the beacon powered back on. Not in blue. In red. The pulse pattern changed every 6 seconds. Now every 3. A countdown. Commander Jex of the Outer Ilari Scout Fleet leaned forward. Who restarted it? No one answered, because no one could. The Terrans weren't responding to the beacon. The beacon was calling them. Tactical. Turn inside the hollowed asteroid core of Station Argos. A Terran operative named Mara stood before a console glowing crimson. She didn't panic. She didn't speak. She just placed her hand on the interface and whispered, "Confirm Reaper protocol." The system asked one question. "Are you certain?" Her eyes didn't waver. Yes, they touched the dead. Across 12 systems, dark ships stirred. No engines. No drives. Just movement. Smooth. Final. The Reapers were not drones. They weren't AI. They were old, crewed by silence, powered by memory. And they didn't follow orders. They followed activations. Psychological. Hooked back on the Ilari homeworld. Scientists watched their long-range feeds dissolve into static. It wasn't interference. It was deletion. Systems simply stopped existing. And every disappearance timed perfectly with the beacon's new pulse. 3 seconds. Then another. Then another. 1. Elder asked, "What's coming?" And someone finally gave the only answer anyone would believe. The things Earth locked away in case someone ever forgot why they stopped fighting. The beacon was never a threat. It was a seal. And now it had been broken. They thought it was mercy. It wasn't. The Ilari still thought it was a delay, something to buy time, some ancient ritual. A bluff wrapped in red light. They didn't understand. The countdown wasn't starting. It was finishing. In Sector Varn 6. A mining outpost blinked. Off the grid. No alarms, no flares. Just gone, like someone had erased the idea of a scout drone sent in to investigate. Never came back. Not because they were destroyed, but because every time they crossed the beacon's expanding pulse field, they returned. With no memory, we're being scrubbed, one analyst whispered. Not attacked, forgotten. In the control room beneath Mare Tranquillitatis, deep inside Earth's moon, an old man sat in a chair that hadn't been used in 100 years. He wore no uniform, no rank insignia. Just a black coat and a ring of dark metal no one else could identify. They called him Gray. "Reapers have begun initial drift," said the technician beside him. "No anomalies. No resistance yet. They won't see them," Gray replied. "Not until it's too late." The tech hesitated. "Sir, why were they built?" Gray didn't look up. "To end wars we were too tired to win. Why didn't we ever use them?" "We never needed to," he exhaled slowly. "Until now." On the screen, 12 ships appeared. Not on radars, not on heat maps, only on gravitational lensing. Shapes where gravity twisted, but nothing was there. And behind each ship, A trail of light loss. They weren't traveling. They were devouring distance. Tactical turn-high strategist Ural now stood. Inside the Ilari command dome, sweat pooling beneath his layered armor. We must respond. Bring every weapon to the edge of Terran space, cut off their reinforcements. A junior officer shook her head. There are no reinforcements. Just them, Ural snapped. What are they? A whisper from the back of the chamber answered. Grave ships. Speak clearly. They're not warships. They're graves. Girth never sent them out. Then who did? History. Across the fractured remnants of the old Terran war logs, a pattern emerged. The beacon had never broadcast a distress. Signal. It wasn't for help. It was a warning to stay away. The Reapers weren't launched. They were released. Mara stood alone in the void of a forgotten Earth station once used for memory encryption. The air was still, walls covered in names. No titles. Just names. Children, soldiers, colonists. Entire cities that disappeared during the Silence Wars. She ran her hand along one wall and whispered, They touched the beacon, Reeve. They reached into our grave. And somewhere out in the dark, the Reaper fleet shifted toward its first target. Not a fleet. Not a planet. A memory vault deep inside Ilari territory built from stolen Terran tech. The Reapers were not headed for vengeance. They were heading home. They thought disabling the beacon would make Earth retreat. But it didn't deactivate the warning. It unsealed it. They didn't see the Reapers arrive, because they didn't arrive like ships. They arrived like moments. First, the stars dimmed, not in sequence, not gradually, just enough that every Ilari observatory reported atmospheric interference, solar particle misalignment, phantom gravity. Then the scream started, not from people. From systems. Firewalls that had never been breached before began looping error codes in ancient Terran dialects, codes no one in the current era should have even remembered. One looped line kept echoing through command consoles on the Ilari front. Echo of echo. Beacon interference. We warned you. AVD Spike Gray sat perfectly still in the lunar archive bay as the pulse frequency increased. 3 seconds, now 2. They're accelerating, his aide said. They're remembering, Gray replied. A pause. You mean we're remembering? No. He looked at the silent screens. They are. Because the Reapers didn't need instructions. They weren't programmed. They were buried instincts. Ships built around sacrifice, piloted by memories so raw they could tear open fabric just by returning. They weren't built to kill. They were built to remind. The first Ilari moonbase collapsed. Inward like paper drawn into a breath. No weapon fired. No explosion. Just absence. A blank space where terror used to be. We're not at war. A frightened Ilari commander whispered. We're at witness. Emotional shift in a sealed chamber far below Earth's Pacific Trench. Mara walked through the Hall of Lights. Every beam on the wall was tied to a Reaper ship. 12 beams. 10 glowing. 2 dark. 1 flickered. She stopped. It's her, isn't it? She asked the AI nearby. The response came slowly. She's the one that left, before there was anyone left to come back for. Mara exhaled. And whispered, then she's the one who ends it. Tactical turn. The Ilari launched a failsafe. 12 AI drones, encoded with retroviral logic designed to rewrite any active fleet's directive. They reached the Reapers, one by one. The drones sent out their commands. One by one, they turned black, then screamed. No system held. No logic survived, not because Earth blocked it, because the Reapers didn't operate on logic. They operated on loss, and you can't overwrite what has nothing left to. Forget. Psychological hook. Across deep space colonies, horror spread, not from seeing the Reapers, from not seeing them. Ships simply stopped responding. not destroyed, not wrecked, just quiet. Entire systems began broadcasting surrender to no one. Please. One message repeated across the galactic net. We didn't know what it meant. We didn't know it was a grave. They had tried disabling a beacon, but that beacon wasn't a signal. It was a tombstone. The pulse hit once every second now, not just light anymore, tone. A vibration that crawled into every Ilari structure, every comm line, every species' bones. It wasn't frequency. It was memory bleeding through circuitry. Systems meant to detect life started. Detecting grief. In orbit over the scorched remnants of Colony 5, a young Ilari comms officer stood frozen in front of his screen. No alarms, just a message auto-translated into their own dialect. You tried to mute the past. Now it answers back, his captain shouted. Is it an invasion? The officer didn't blink. No, it's something else. It's morning. The AVD spike in the Terran control vault. The final Reaper lit up. Gray didn't celebrate. He didn't even stand. They all woke up. The technician whispered. No, Gray said quietly. They were never asleep. We were just lucky enough to be forgotten. The screen showed no combat reports. No fleet clashes. Just systems winking out. Some intact. Some cleansed. Like dust blown off an old nameplate. Mara entered the room. They've passed Kepler line. That's deep into old Ilari space. They took the vault, didn't they? Gray asked. She nodded. The Reaper didn't destroy it. It absorbed it. Gray turned away. They're not killing. They're collecting. Emotional shift in an abandoned orbiting museum above a dead moon. The lights flickered on. No one was there. No code was sent. And yet, the doors opened. Inside, old Earth artifacts sat untouched for a century. A cracked Terran helmet, a journal, a child's toy, and in the center of the room, a Reaper stood. Not armed. Just standing. Its frame buzzed with pulse light. Not threatening. Reading. The journal turned its own page. Psychological hook. The galaxy now whispered a new fear. Not war. Not destruction. Witnessing. The Reapers weren't chasing anyone. They were visiting memories that had been stolen. Vaults. Tech. Debris. Anything once lost to silence. They were coming for what was theirs. Tactical turn. The Ilari tried one last measure. A time inversion weapon illegal under every accord. If they couldn't stop the Reapers, they'd reverse the moment the beacon was touched. They fired it. Time reversed. Except the Reapers stayed, because what came from beyond memory doesn't go back. One final Ilari message was transmitted before. Blackout. We didn't wake the dead. We just reminded them where they were buried. The beacon still pulses. 1 second, then another, then silence. And somewhere in the void between stars, the Reapers wait not for commands, but for the next thief bold enough to touch the past. Jake GPT sighed. The stars had stopped pulsing, not because the Reapers were finished, but because they no longer needed permission. What began as a countdown was now a rhythm stitched into the galaxy's skin. Pulses weren't broadcasting from the beacon anymore. They were echoing through everything the Ilari had ever built. In Command Bastion 9, where the Ilari high strategists once drank wine and wrote war hymns, the walls had started humming. First in the floors, then through the windows, then behind the eyes. Nobody could figure out what the sound was, because it wasn't sound. It was regret. Manifested. On the 6th day after the beacon incident, entire systems stopped reporting. Not due to damage, not due to sabotage. They were still intact, but silent. As if language had simply been uninvited. A VD spike in Earth's Pacific core, the control vault lit up with gold. Not red, not warning. Something older, calmer. Mara stood watching the waveform oscillate across the command glass. Is that Normal? One of the junior techs asked, trembling. No, she whispered, but it's right. Gray stepped into the chamber slowly, hand on the old railing like. It was part of him. They're close to the vault, he said. Which one? Mara asked. He met her eyes. The first. Emotional flip. No one spoke when the first Terran Reaper passed through the remains of Old Earth Station 7. It didn't fire. Didn't scan. It just hovered. And from its undercarriage, it projected a scene in hard-light hologram. A market. Children. Laughing. Wind in the sky. Then silence. Then deletion. The image burned into space, then faded as the ship drifted on. Alari recon ships tried to intercept it. 36 fighters armed with every pulse weapon they'd designed since Earth fell silent. They surrounded it. They opened fire, and every single ship's footage showed the same thing. The Reaper didn't move. The shots didn't hit. They just passed through a memory. Because that's all the Reaper was allowing them to see. Tactical turn on the outer edge of Ilari-controlled territory. A last-ditch counterattack was authorized. Strike the beacon, Commander Sirith hissed. Barry. It again. If we cut the link, maybe we break the tether. No one responded. So she screamed. I said, strike it. The fleet complied. 200 plasma torpedoes launched toward the beacon signal core. It didn't shield. It didn't vanish. It listened. And then something moved behind. It. Not a ship, a shadow. A Reaper so large it occluded systems behind it. Its hull wasn't black. It was absence given shape. It eclipsed logic. It didn't block the torpedoes. It took them. Like confessions. And it pulsed once. Just once. The entire Ilari fleet forgot what they were doing. Their navigation logs deleted. Themselves. Their battle plans dissolved into old lullabies. One pilot stared at their console and muttered, Where am I? The answer never came, because in the Reaper's presence, there was no longer a you. Psychological. Hook aboard Earth's old observation station. Echo, a small team of historians watched from the dark. The Reapers never once turned toward them. They just passed by. One of the historians, a woman named Leon, reached for the comms panel. We should send them something, she said. Just a greeting. So they know we still remember them. An old AI blinked to life, voice fractured from decades of sleep. They do not require memory. They are built of it. They might still want to hear it, Leon whispered. She reached out, pressed a single key, and played an audio file once stored in Terran nurseries. A human child, maybe 4 years old, laughing, saying, I remember the stars, they used to sing. Then giggling, then nothing. The Reaper nearest to station Echo slowed barely. Its lights flickered. Not red, not gold. Blue. Then it moved on. Emotional Echo. The Ilari began to abandon entire sectors, but not by fleeing. They simply shut the lights off, turned off engines, sealed data cores. As if by choosing stillness, they could return to before they ever touched the beacon. Ilari Prime sent a final message out through a half-broken relay. We understand now. It was not a monument. It was a mass grave. They tried encrypting it, but no code would hold. Every letter scrambled and reassembled until only one word remained: reapers.avd. Spike at the edge of the galaxy, a new civilization picked up the key. Terran beacon signal confused by its age, curious about its pattern. They analyzed it, decoded it, laughed at it. They sent out a challenge, a dare, and 5 systems away. Something turned. No engine. No propulsion. No message. Just a decision. The Reapers had heard them. They didn't speak. They didn't warn. They just began moving. Because the beacon had never belonged to Earth. It belonged to what? Earth Unleashed. The galaxy wasn't watching Earth anymore. It was listening. For footsteps in the dark, There was no fleet anymore. No battle lines. No retreat paths. No emergency frequencies screaming across the stars. The Ilari, empire once the loudest voice in the quadrant, was reduced to whispers, and even those were fading. In the silence, they started building things, not defenses. Not weapons. Shrines. Empty. Towers with no names, hollow circles in metal soil. Entire orbital rings pulsing soft white light just in case the Bia Reapers decided to see something worth sparing. It wasn't faith. It was fear turned respectful. Because now, every civilization that watched Earth fall silent also understood. The Reapers weren't Earth's revenge. They were what Earth hoped never to use. A VD spike on the edge of the shattered belt. A colony that once hoarded old Terran scrap opened its vault. For years, they had collected what they thought were human artifacts, beacon shards, black alloy, fragments etched with radiation trails they couldn't decipher. Now, they offered them up, freighters filled with crates of it, flown into open space, left floating, unguarded. The Reapers came. Not in force. Just one. It didn't scan the cargo. Didn't broadcast intent. It hovered. The crates vaporized. No beam. No heat. Just gone. In their place, the colony found something left behind. A single iron ring. Blank, heavy, warm. Inside it, a recording. 7 seconds. A female human voice. You? Tried to remember us too late. But that's still better than never. Emotional shift. Back on Earth, Commander Ray Carter stood on the old landing platform of Lunar Post V. The Reapers were now outside Sol, entirely out in the dark, visiting places most humans had never heard of. A junior officer approached with a datapad. Ma'am, a delegation from the Vrinth systems wants to discuss containment. They're afraid the Reapers won't stop. They're not supposed to stop, Carter said. The officer frowned. But what are they doing? She looked at the stars. They're grieving. A pause. Grieving? For everything we lost while the galaxy laughed. Then she walked away. No orders. No calls. Because the Reapers weren't answering to Earth anymore. They never had. Tactical. Turned deep in Ilari space. An ancient bunker activated emergency protocols buried for generations. AI. Sentinel code. WRX-7. It had one purpose. Erase data before it fell into enemy hands. It initiated a full wipe of the planet's tech grid. The Reapers let it happen. Not because they couldn't stop it. Because they wanted them to try. 30 seconds later, the AI activated a failsafe. Detonation of the central data core. A flare of energy spread across the sky. But when the smoke cleared, the planet was still there. So was the bunker. WRX-7 sent out an alert. Primary sequence failed. No logical cause. Then its final log entry self-wrote. What is built to forget cannot delete what is already remembered. The Reapers had overwritten reality, not through force. Through presence. Psychological hook-in and underground Terran. Archive only accessed once since the beacon was constructed. A series of old test videos began playing on loop. No one triggered them. No one even knew they were still stored. Footage showed Earth's first attempt at long-range memory transmission, encoded emotions condensed into sound waves. The tests were failures. At least, that's what the file said. But now, something had activated them. And as the camera panned over the playback monitor, a subtitle appeared. Not from the video. From now, you thought we built them to remember the war. We built them to remember who we were. AVD spike somewhere far beyond known space. A ghost signal drifted between NEBULAE. The message wasn't human, but it was about them. This is Sector 74R. Abandoned. 200 years ago, after the Terran cold zones, there's movement. Old movement. And a shadow in orbit that doesn't match any recorded hull. The voice paused. It's not here to invade. It's here to listen. Another pause. If anyone gets this, don't speak to it. Don't try to run. Just let it look. The transmission ended, then repeated over and over. Each replay a little quieter until it stopped. Emotional flip on Earth. In a quiet classroom with no lights but a flickering display wall, a teacher sat with a dozen children. She told them stories about old flags, about the day the sun dimmed, and about the silence that followed. A boy raised his hand. Are the Reapers monsters? She thought for a moment, then shook her head. No, they're stories that never got finished. Do they love us? A beat. They remember us. And that was enough. Tactical closure in orbit above what used to be the Alari capital. A Reaper stopped hovered over the ruins, projected one last pulse. Then it turned, not away from the system. Away from the galaxy. And vanished into dark space. One by one. The others followed, not into battle. Into beyond. No final message, no warning, no presence. Just silence again, but different this time. Not the silence of fear, the silence of completion. Of things returned to where they belong. The beacon, back in soul orbit, pulsed one last time. A single beat, then nothing. Earth didn't shut it off. They just let it rest. Because now, even the Reapers could sleep, and those who touched the beacon, they finally understood what it had been saying all along. Some memories bury themselves. Others learned to get back up. The galaxy began whispering again, not with arrogance. With caution, the kind of caution that lingers after a funeral, when you don't speak above a breath because it still feels like the dead might hear you. The Tihan says when you don't speak above a breath because it still feels like the dead might hear you. Reapers were gone, not destroyed. Not dismissed, just departed. Their departure wasn't announced. Their absence wasn't explained. They had simply done what they came to do. And it left the galaxy with one terrifying truth no council dared say aloud. They might return. A VD Spikefire in the Alari. Reach, a research vessel, cataloged what remained of the Alari core systems. The crew moved slowly. There were no signs of battle. No wreckage. No atmospheric damage. Just abandoned structures and silent satellites, untouched but unnervingly clean. One junior engineer opened a preserved data core, expecting corrupted files. Instead, it played. A voice, female, human, not military. By the time they hear this, she said softly, we'll already be gone. But the beacon remains, not to warn, not to threaten, but to remind you. She paused. We never needed to win a war. Just outlive it. The message looped once, then erased itself. Emotional shift. Earth, once isolated, now found itself feared and followed, but not approached. No ships crossed the edge of Terran space. No diplomats dared send envoys, because there was no one left to negotiate with. You don't make demands to a graveyard, and you don't knock on doors that open by themselves. Commander Carter now worked beneath the Atlantic, inside a vault deeper than any ocean trench. A room with no screens, no lights, just a seat and a voice sensor. She visited once a week, and she waited. Nothing ever spoke back. Until today. Double quotes. Ray. The voice wasn't transmitted. It wasn't digital. It was remembered. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just closed her eyes and whispered, "Welcome home." Tactical turned far across the void, in a once hostile system called Drenith. A fleet of mercenary scavengers tried to reclaim abandoned Ilari tech. They found a vault. Not locked. Open. Inside. Untouched Earth artifacts. A child's toy. A photo of Mars. A necklace. And a wall of names written in Terran script. Why didn't they take this? One of the mercs asked. No one answered. Until the vault door began to close by itself. No, wait. Too late. They were sealed in. They never screamed, because no one ever heard them again. Outside, a single pulse flickered once above the vault. Then it too went dark. Psychological hook in the great library of Veltharn. A child asked her teacher, "Why did Earth stop talking?" The teacher thought long before answering. Because sometimes, when you're hurt enough, you don't talk to protect others. You stop talking to protect yourself. Will they ever talk again? The teacher didn't answer this time, because behind her, in the archives, a pulse activated from an old data chip that no one had dared touch in a century. Played one word: maybe. AVD spike in a ship drifting near the galaxy's edge. A lone AI flickered awake. It had been offline for over 300 years. Its mission? Wait for a signal. Monitor Sol. Reactivate Earth's last fail-safe only if the beacon went dark for good. Its sensors confirmed. The beacon was silent. The AI hesitated. Then accessed a hidden file. Text only. Do not activate. This silence is not the end. It is the reward. The AI powered itself down. It never woke again. Emotional collapse in the ruins of an Alari satellite station. A single survivor recorded a message, not for help, for memory. He stared into the lens, face pale, eyes sunken. They didn't come to destroy us. They came to ask why we kept forgetting. He paused. I think I finally remember. Then he ended the recording by turning the camera toward a blinking red light in the distance. Not a weapon, not a ship. Just the beacon, still there. Still pulsing. Once every 24 hours. Slow. Patient. Like breath. Signature close. Earth didn't threaten the galaxy with the Reapers. They just made sure the galaxy finally understood. Some messages don't go quiet. They wait. ChatGPT said. They started calling. It the long silence, not because Earth stopped transmitting, but because the galaxy did, across hundreds of systems. Communication relays still functioned, fleets still flew, and satellites still blinked in the void, but no one said anything first. No species dared trigger whatever it was that still sat behind the dark side of Sol, just beyond sensor range. They feared that pulse, that rhythm, even muted. The memory of it shook louder than most wars. And then one day, a signal returned. Not from Earth. From beyond Earth. A VD spike. It was picked up in the Galvani drift, decoded through 16 different ancient frequency banks. A whisper. One line. We are not the only ones who build beacons. The listening post fell silent. Its crew didn't log it. They didn't forward it. They deleted it. And still, the whisper returned the next day. Same voice. Same pause. This time it added, they turned ours off too. Tactical turn on Earth. Inside the Mariana subcore, a Terran chamber sealed beneath. Tectonic layers and forgotten by most, an old file blinked awake. Not triggered by a code. Not by touch. Triggered by response. Carter stood alone in the cold chamber. She didn't speak. She just looked at the wall, where a faint diagram of the Reaper grid still shimmered. But now, something else flickered beside it. Another grid. Alien. Inverted. Not built to warn. Built to mimic. Her hand hovered over the terminal. What is this? She asked quietly. The AI's voice crackled. Another beacon. Not ours. Built to silence. Who built it? A pause. The ones who buried us first. Psychological hook aboard the last Terran Deep Watch ship stationed in the uninhabitable void between galaxies. The crew finally received something they weren't trained for. A distress call from a human ship. A Reaper. Except not one of theirs. Older. Damaged. Lost. Its ID. WRATHO. Not part of the Reaper grid. Never logged. And it was broadcasting coordinates in a galaxy no Terran had ever explored. WRAITH-0 had crossed back. Its signal included only one other phrase. They're waking up too. Emotional collapse. Carter met with Gray beneath the south crater archives for the first time in 3 years. He looked thinner. Older. Not because of age, but because of weight. She handed him the signal logs. He read them slowly, then folded the pages. So, he said, we're not the only ones who sealed monsters in silence. No, Carter replied. But we might have been the only ones who apologized for it. Gray looked up. Do we tell the others? Carter didn't answer, because out there, beyond, even the Reaper's reach, another silence had broken, and it didn't mourn like Terrans did. At HUNGERED. A VD spike, the Terran beacon flared once, only once. Not red. Not gold. Not white. Black. So black it consumed light around it. Every observatory in the quadrant saw it. Every empire that had once mocked Earth issued emergency alerts, and for the first time in modern memory, they all agreed Earth wasn't the center of the threat. It was the first one smart enough to survive it. Emotional shift in a remote star system where Terran refugees had built a quiet outpost after the Silence Wars. A child looked up from there garden and pointed at the sky. Papa, she whispered, is the dark moving? Her father looked up, pale, because it was, not fast, not like a ship, but like a wave, a smooth ripple blotting out constellations. One by one. He didn't answer her. He just pulled her inside and locked the door, even though he knew it wouldn't help. Signature. Phase. The Reapers had left, but something older had heard the beacon die, and it was coming to ask why. The galaxy held its breath, not because Earth demanded it, because the dark between stars had started to move again, and this time, it wasn't Earth that opened the door. The Reapers had gone silent. The beacon Terran, sacred, terrifying, had dimmed. And something far older, something Earth hadn't built but had once glimpsed and buried, had stepped back into the void. Not with vengeance. With curiosity. That was worse. Because curiosity doesn't hate. It studies. At UNWRAPS. A VD. Spike Commander Ray Carter stood at the edge of the North Orbital Array, watching the stars blink out one by one. Not destroyed. Just turned off. No debris. No light distortion. Like reality itself was forgetting them. Behind her, Gray appeared, older, slower, limping from a fall no one had seen. It's them, he said quietly. Carter nodded. Double quotes. Not ours, she said. No, he replied, but familiar. Do we reactivate the Reapers? Gray looked at the control node. It was pulsing faintly, waiting. He didn't reach for it. Neither did she. Would they even answer? Carter asked. A pause. They might, Gray said. But this isn't their fight. Emotional flip. Earth didn't send a fleet, didn't arm its last systems. It did something stranger. It transmitted music. Old songs. Wind on wood. Children singing. Ocean waves. A billion memories sent across dead space like offerings. Not to scare. To remind. Because whatever was coming wasn't coming to destroy. It was coming to measure. And Earth, for all its wars, for all its silence, did not want to fight again. So they sent who they used to be. Tactical hook. The alien pulse, cold, massive, untranslatable, reached soul. Sensors exploded with phantom readings. Then nothing happened. Earth was still there. The beacon didn't flare. No ships vanished. Instead, a reply came. 3 words, translated by force, not by code. You remembered first. Every Reaper in deep space reactivated. No engines. No weapons. Just alignment. They turned not toward the new threat, but between it and Earth, a wall of memory, grief, and silence. Psychological end across the galaxy. Systems watched in awe as the Reapers didn't attack. They knelt. Every single one lowered altitude and waited. Not in surrender. In witness. Because The darkness wasn't here to claim Earth. It came to confirm a truth written in the stars, before language had names for war, that those who remember pain before power are allowed to endure. Final pulse. The beacon pulsed once, then stayed dark. Not broken. Resting. Because the galaxy had seen enough. And the things in the dark, they blinked. And moved on. Earth didn't survive because it fought hardest. Earth survived because it remembered first. The end.